A young child is sleeping on the ground in the dirt amongst insects and animals, as everyone does. Huddled around the campfire with the tribe as they attempt to keep warm in the below-freezing temperatures of the Kalahari desert nights. She tries to get some rest, but in the back of her mind she can't wait for the excitement of morning. She knows that the tribe will have to trek for miles and miles tomorrow, searching for the life nectar that is water, because here it hasn't rained for months. Hello and welcome to the channel. I am That One History G, and this is part number 2 of 4 parts of the San series, talking all about the San people of Southern Africa. They are the original tribe of all tribes, and they are still around today. Now, if you haven't watched part number 1 of the series yet, I suggest you go watch that first. The link is in the description of the video down below. While you're there, please go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. I would really appreciate it. Now, let's get into it. In part number 1, we spoke about the tribe's hunter-gatherer lifestyle, how they hunted and how they gathered, leading to their survival of harsh environments. This episode, however, we are going to be talking about the nomadic lifestyle, their linguistics, their religion, their ethics, and their social structure. In terms of their nomadic lifestyle, the San didn't wander around randomly across this vast wilderness that is Southern Africa. They tended to move in a systematic way at different times of the year, using the resources that were available during those seasons. This meant that the San had a loose sense of territory and control, and a concept of place that was linked to animals and places. They also saw no separation between places or between animals and people. They had this idea that everything was interconnected. There has been debate amongst researchers that claim that the San clearly had defined territory. Some think perhaps they didn't, but most think that they had a link to the territory because of the water sources. This water source was divided by each language group. So each language group had their own water source, and anyone could use this water source, but they had to obtain permission first. Moreover, the linguistic study of the San people with their cliques is important to establish connections between various different San hunting bands, because there weren't just one group of people, there were many different groups of people, and they linked with the Khoikhoi herders and the African farmers at a later date. These cliques can also be seen in Southern African languages such as isiXhosa, which is a language I had to learn at school and then relearn in university. And if you are Xhosa, ndiye ndithanda isiXhosa. I want you to imagine here that the tribe is sitting around the campfire. After a day of hunting and gathering, the elders are telling stories to the children that are fables. It's like going to school for them. It's their education. But the medical man, the shaman, comes into the fray and tells a story about how one of their tribe members is sick, and they need to understand why they are sick and what's going to happen to them in the future. This is where we see ritual practices coming into play, ritual ceremonies which shamanism, symbolism, and trance dances play an important role. Within San communities, some men and women had the ability to enter into a state of trance and offer ritual services to the group. These trances were entered during regular ritual dances of communities, which normally took place around campfires at night, and no drugs were used to induce this state of trance. It was only reached through concentration, dancing, and through the drum music of the San people. The dances gradually increased in intensity. Dancers experienced sweating and then shaking. They collapse down to the ground and bleed from the nose. At this stage, the person is entering into a trance. They die, and it is believed that the supernatural potency enters into them. In the Marvel movie Black Panther, the lead actor, T'Challa, goes into a trance and sees his deceased father in a scene that is based off of the San religion. This is believed to have an interconnectivity between supernatural realms and their very real realms, where they would enter the supernatural realm to go and speak to their ancestors, to understand what is happening in their world and how they can improve their lot. Those who were able to enter into this trance state through dance are referred to as medicine people, shamans. They were believed to act as links between the physical and the supernatural world. There are probably three main characteristics of medicine people. Medicine people of the game, who had the power to enter into the animals and understand the hunt. Medicine people of the rain, who had powers over rainfall. Medicine people of sickness, who controlled illness and cures, who were believed to be able to remove sickness from their tribe. These medicine people were almost certainly the painters of rocks, the rock paintings that represent their experience within the trance. The symbols and representation of paintings would have been clearly understood by the Sand people, containing messages from the supernatural world. Scholars now interpret the rock paintings and engravings in the context of social and economic life in the Sand people, but equally, it's important to understand the context of their religious life, as it is clear that the rock paintings and engravings contain many religious symbols. Now let's take one example that comes up very often in Sand rock painting: the representation of an eland. The eland is the largest of all antelopes and was sought after by the Sand people. It's fairly common and had a great deal of meat and fat. It played a central role in these ceremonies, such as those of gaining one's puberty or becoming married to someone. It served as a symbol of unity and abundance. When in the trance state, the shaman believed they had become the animal, and they controlled the identity of the animal, and the animal controlled their identity as well. They were one. And this is represented by rock paintings, where we have half human, half antelope paintings, which is very common. And it probably portrays the state of the shaman's mind, having to bridge the supernatural world and the real world. In terms of their society, there was indeed a greater collective, and everything was shared between everyone, from food and meat, etc., etc. If someone were to go hunting, they would hunt for the entire tribe. But if they were to go collecting and gathering stuff, you would use that just for your own family unit. Obviously, they would have to move around quite a bit because they didn't have fixed water sources, and a high degree of mobility is necessary, so they didn't really have a lot of possessions. They wanted to make sure that they were as flexible as possible to ensure survival in this harsh environment. So equality was an important feature in social relations amongst Sand groups, which were not rigid. They often changed depending on how much food and water was available to them. This means they had to exercise strategic flexibility and distribute themselves across the landscape so everyone could get a certain section. But they would also send certain people with certain bands to make sure that that band survives, such as a good hunter here or a good gatherer there, to ensure that this band could survive. And bands could split up, and they could be small disagreements that would force bands to split up. But Sand bands could be as small as a singular family or as large as 80 people. Whenever there were disagreements, the Sand had a political organization and justice system. Because of their small size and the absence of wealth, there was no chiefly authority amongst Sand people. There were no chiefs because decisions were made as a group, as a whole. And this process included both adult men and adult women, while the shaman and the medicine people used their wisdom and spiritual powers to provide guidance during the decision-making process. This informal and equal political organization grew out of the fact that all adults pretty much had a good knowledge of the natural environment and participated actively across different economic activities that ensured the survival of the group. Consensus in the group was general, and it was based pretty much on collective decision-making, except for when punishment needed to be dealt with. Disputes were often settled on a one-to-one basis or on a family basis. If conflicts could not be resolved, individuals would be banished from their camp or told to join other camps. Now we know that the Sand still continue today, but how exactly did they achieve that? Well, you're going to have to wait and find out in part number 3. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed that. Let me know what you want to watch in the future. Like, comment, and subscribe. The more you know.